Undyne! Undyne, no! I wish to use the camera! Undyne! There. Hello, human. I am the Great Papyrus, and I am here to show you how my magnificent visage was forged! Forged using the strongest necromantic magic. What? What do you mean sculpted out of clay? That's basically mud! Ah! Click here to see how my head was sculpted from mud, but stay around to see how it was then made into something even more magnificent. Now, Undyne has to let me into the Royal Guard.
An introduction from the Great Papyrus. I can't think of a better way to start off this video. Anyway, hey everyone, I'm Hayze, this is Armored Brownies, and here you can see me starting to take the clamps off my brand new Papyrus Mold. If you've followed me along here, you'll know how this got sculpted, and hopefully you can get an idea of what goes into actually creating the mask just by seeing it coming out of the mold. The mold is made out of a mixture of polyester resin, polyester filler, and fiberglass, and I'll put a link in the description below to a very useful video produced by the Stan Winston School of Character Arts on creating molds just like this one. You can see my first ever papyrus head out of that mold. You can see it's got a couple of bubbles around the teeth and a couple of parts where the moulding isn't actually great. In future, I can fill those in with some epoxy resin and get much nicer sculpts. So, what do? We start by cleaning off the flash and trimming down all of the area around the edges with a nice sharp pair of scissors. Latex isn't exactly hard to cut. However, it is very stretchy, which means you need a sharp pair of scissors. So I use the same scissors that I use for cutting fabric or leather. I spend a little bit of time filling the gap that I've accidentally cut along the seam at the top with some latex, which will help to strengthen the final mask, because when it dries, it'll bond with the latex that's already there and it'll impregnate the foam layer beneath it, which will hold the whole thing together. And now, just like all my other recent masks, we cut out some eye mesh for it. This is a plastic mesh that you can buy for embroidery. But the good thing about it is you can paint one side of it to be opaque, so when you're looking at it from the other side, you can see through all the tiny little holes, and you can see out of the mask, but people can't see in. So you can get a nice one-way effect on the mask. And I do that just using a bit of contact glue, in this case Evo Stick Impact. And now, just like his brother, we spend a little time putting down the base coat of bone white. I mix in a tiny bit of brown with this white and a little bit of latex as well to give it a touch of flexibility, and base coat the entire thing, just making sure that I can get all the recesses, all the cracks. I try to keep the paint a little bit watery so it flows well, as that helps avoid a lot of the brush marks. But really, that's just something you get the hang of, and as you get used to painting over latex, which is a bit of a hassle sometimes. And also, with water included in the paint, it means the paint has less trouble getting down into the recesses. And now, whilst that's still wet, we get out the airbrush. First off, I'm using white with a little bit of brown added to it to cover over all of the parts of the white paint which didn't sit quite so well. So we're bringing the white base coat together, making it a nice, more even shade of white. And we just do that for the entire head. And now we swap over to a darker colour. This is still quite a light brown, but we're using it just to put some quite broad shading onto the mask and filling in a lot of the white space. This isn't the main shading colour, but it does help accentuate the smaller areas that are going to be shaded in a second. It also adds contrast, which makes the whole thing look a lot more like bone. So now we're using a little bit of a moderate brown. I wouldn't call it a dark brown, but this is just to go in the very deep recesses between the teeth, around the eyes, in the nose, and along the cracks of the head. Using the fact that we've got a double action airbrush here to make sure that we are in control of the amount of paint that comes out of the brush and it doesn't go everywhere. And now with that out of the way, it's time for the black. I could do all the black parts as a very dark brown to keep the whole naturalistic look to it, but I think having black around the characterful details that pick this mask out as Papyrus himself actually adds to identifying this mask as Papyrus, considering this is not remarkably close to his original character design. And then after all this, I spent a little bit of time with some white paint to go back over the teeth to make sure they are just perfectly even, because they are quite big objects that the airbrush can spill over to with its other paint. And then, just by hand, paint the pupils in. Now, I wanted these pupils to be a bit more beady than Sans's, even though he doesn't really have pupils that I remember from the game. So these are more just as focuses, so people know where to look on the mask, and it brings the whole thing together. Anyway, I hope you liked it. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, share this video with any other friends, and I hope you can find some use for these techniques in your own mask making. Don't forget, if you have any questions about anything that was done here, please feel free to ask and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. See you next time!
Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and one day I might stop doing these dumb voices.